Hi, everyone. Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole on Domain Sherpa. Jen and JT here. And as we say in Domain Sherpa, all roads lead to domains. And in the reverse, our work with domains has us venturing all the time into different areas, hence the jump down the rabbit hole.
This is our tech adjacent digital assets, pop culture, tangent positive, anything goes monthly ish podcast with a dash of domain nuggets for good measure. We'll explore provocative topics with our distinguished guests, touch on some news, maybe not today, but we'll do a few different topics and likely shower you with very relevant trivia today.
That's right. And we'll bring on these interesting guests to that end. Today we have Donna and Marcello Abbate from Fit for Life Mind, Body, Soul, who focus on digital wellness and mental performance.
So, question: how do you balance using technology for work and leisure while ensuring it doesn't negatively affect your physical and mental health, such as posture, eye health, sleep, mindset, nutrition, productivity, communication, and relationships? We're going to be diving down this rabbit hole today.
That's right. And this is a very important aspect of all of our lives. So even if this is not a very domain-centric show, you should tune in and see how all this can help you. And remember, if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you could also watch the video version at DomainSherpa.com and on our YouTube channel at ds.tv. You can also check us out on Apple and Spotify and other podcast platforms as well. And as usual, big shout out to Dan.com, the number one place in the world to buy and sell your domains with a special platform made for domain investors.
With that, 'tis time to get curiouser and dive down the rabbit hole on Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains.
Let's go. What's up, Sherpa Network? Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Jonathan Tenenbaum, a.k.a. JT, a.k.a. Jayon, a.k.a. Sherpa Winfrey, a.k.a. John Burgundy. And I'm the host and producer of Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains. Today's show is our Down the Rabbit Hole show. Welcome to the Tea Party. As we say here on Domain Sherpa, all roads lead to domains. And in the reverse, our work in domains has us venturing all the time into different areas and topics, some super familiar to us and some not so much. Hence the jump down the rabbit hole. This particular show is co-hosted by Jen and myself, and we describe it as our tech-adjacent, digital asset, pop culture, tangent, positive monthly podcast with some domain stuff thrown in for good measure. So we pick a topic or two to get into. We cover a bunch of related news and pieces and parts of it, and really just try to have as much fun as we can while giving you guys as much information as we can. And today I'm super, super, super excited. I don't know if I'm as excited as Jen is, but I am very, very excited for today's show because we are focusing today on digital well-being and mental performance. And we have Donna Abbate and Marcello Abbate. Did I say that right, guys? Did I say it right?
Abbate.
Abbate. Okay. From Fit for Life, Mind, Body, Soul. And these guys they're based in Australia like Jen is. And they are, experts probably isn't even a good enough qualified term to say for you guys for this particular field. So really we couldn't have anybody better. But let me go ahead and do my AKAs. I don't want to get into the bio just yet. I'm going to start with my homegirl, my co-host. Over to my right, I got my girl Jen Sale, a.k.a. Aussie Osborne, a.k.a. Olivia Newton-Jen, a.k.a. Crocodile Dundee, a.k.a. Dingo Star, a.k.a. Melbourne to be Wild, a.k.a. Sipping on Jen and Juice. And, of course, on this show, a.k.a. Alice. What's up? How are you, Jen? How's everything?
Super duper.
All right. Well, this show has been a long time coming. We've talked a ton about this one offline and super excited to be able to have Donna and Marcello on here. So let me go ahead and let me do my AKAs. I'm actually, well, you know what? I'll go with Marcello first. I had Marcello on the other side of my sheet, but down to my lower right, we got Marcello Abbate, a.k.a. the Master of Minds, a.k.a. the Performance Whisperer, a.k.a. Lemoncello, a.k.a. Yo-Yo Mar. Cello, you know what I'm saying? So he, leveraging 25 years of experience, he's a pioneer in the fitness industry, specializing body biomechanics, martial arts, Tai Chi, and mindfulness mentoring. His ability to connect and initiating lasting change has reached the hearts of many. Just a profound human, originally from Italy. We might even get a little bit of that story here on the pod, which Jen had volunteered, but not you. So I don't know. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Was I not supposed to say that? Anyway, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
I
thank
really
you.
look forward to it.
Well, thank you for being here. All right. And last but certainly not least, below me, we have Donna Abbate, aka the Wellness Wizard of Oz, aka Oh Donna, aka Capadonna, aka the Ripped Little Ripper. That's from Jen. That's not from me. And aka Is Don Is Good. I don't know what that means either, but that was from Jen. So she really coached me here on the AKAs. And Donna is a leading wellness facilitator and has transformed thousands of lives at Fit for Life and Guingana Lifestyle Retreat. Her fusion of fitness, modalities, nutritional, and naturopathic. How do I say that?
Naturopathic.
Naturopathic. Okay, medicine, educational seminars, and group fitness sessions are unparalleled. So I took that stuff right from the site. You can find them at fitforlifemindbodysoul.com. Also, fitforlife.au will direct you to their site. And the work that they do, again, digital wellness, and mental performance, mindfulness, really quick, and then I'm gonna kick it over to Jen to let her do a little bit more of the intro piece. But for the domain maxis out there, just so you guys know, this will be a lot less domain content that you guys are used to, but I think this is a huge benefit for our audience. I mean, we are all so attached to our digital devices all day, every day. We are on our computers nonstop. And, these are the kinds of things that I think people lose sight of and don't realize that there are things that you can do. There are things you can think about that can actually, improve your quality of life as you are navigating, this digital landscape of our daily lives and with how, sort of stuck to our devices that we are. And I think people lose sight of that. They just think day after day, I just got to keep like logging on and, this is what it is. It is what it is. But there are ways to kind of get big brain about it and, really get better in tune with, some of the science behind it and other things that can absolutely help the way that you manage and work and live. So all that good stuff. So Jen, over to you.
So I thought that I would just start with like a little bit of an explanation of what digital well-being is in case people aren't familiar, which I think most people think it's obvious. But so according to the Digital Wellness Institute, which is the institute that I've studied with, digital wellness is a way of life while using technology that promotes optimal health and well-being in which body, mind, and spirit are integrated by the individual to live more fully within the human, natural, and digital communities. Now, I'm going to get Billy to pop up here the digital flourishing wheel. On your screen now. That will be on your screen. So as you can see, like when it comes to digital well-being, it's quite in depth. So there are like the Digital Wellness Institute break this down into 8 segments. Today, we can really only scratch the surface because we're limited on time. So we'll be looking at like 2 core segments, which are physical health and mental health, and how technology affects these things in our lives and how we can improve upon them and optimize them. And there's some things that you'll be like, oh, that's obvious. But often what's obvious is not always what we end up integrating into our life, which is like, that you should be doing a certain thing, but you just continue to do what you really shouldn't be doing because it's comfortable or whatever it is. It's a habit. So I think we should just dive straight in to we'll start with physical health, which the beautiful Donna is an expert on and has both of these people have changed my life. So I'm just hoping that some of the knowledge and information we can share today will some people can take something away from it or not, because hey, that's life.
That's it. And if you guys don't like today's episode, you can get the amount that you're paying to watch it back. We will refund it to you directly to your PayPal account. So since the show is free to listen to and watch, but all right, well, look, guys, let's, I want to talk really quick and understand a little bit about how you got into the space. I know that I know Jen doesn't want to dwell too much on it because I know she's said, hey, look, there's so much ground to cover here and we only have so much time. But I just think it's, so cool. And, would just be, even if it's 5 minutes of, how your journey got you to this point. So if one of you wants to tackle that and give us a little bit of background, that would be awesome.
Nice to meet you all. Thanks for the amazing introduction and having us here on the show today. So I'll lead. So for me, I grew up in New Zealand, and I was quite fortunate with my upbringing when it comes to, living in the beautiful natural environment. I grew up on a farm, but unfortunately I grew up quite unwell. And so that led me into wellness. I struggled with an autoimmune disease, asthma. I was put on loads of different medication, and that was my normal. I adapted to this new normal using Ventolins and being in hospital all the time. And so I put on a lot of weight from all the medication and had poor self-esteem, poor memory, poor learning, poor everything. I was always run down. Straight out of high school, I wanted to figure it all out. So I went on and studied naturopathy, and I graduated 1996. So that was a lifetime forever ago. Probably a lot of your listeners weren't even alive then. But
I was. I was. That's
I
one.
was.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. But yeah, graduated and started naturopathy at 21 years of age. And back then, there wasn't really many naturopaths around. And so over the last 20 years, it's become quite a popular thing to study. But I've since then gone and done an exercise science and went on and did a nutritional clinical nutrition degree, and went on and went on and worked in health retreats. So I was in a health retreat for 16 years and having up to like 60 people at a time. And it was just the most extraordinary experience to be in nature, stripping back the curtains, getting people off digital. And just for 5 days, sometimes people come for 3. But how quickly, when you go back to the circadian rhythm and you come back to what's natural, our bodies flourish very, very quickly. So that's how I met Jen. But it basically transformed my life, learning the information that I have. I applied it to myself. I still have asthma, but I don't need medication anymore. I use food as medicine. I use herbs as medicine, lifestyle as medicine. And it's literally got me into the best possible shape of my life. It's really empowered my life, because I figured if I can do this, because I was so sick, I figured if I can do this, I can do absolutely everything or anything. And so I changed all of my belief systems around learning, around being a motivated person, changed my mindset. I'm not a sick person. I'm not a lazy person, all the things that I thought that I was growing up. And I'm just kicking goals and helping other people to do the same. And now we're in workplace wellness. It's all about empowerment with the knowledge that I hope to share with you all today.
Love that. That's awesome. All right, cool. All right, Marcello, I don't know how you're going to top that, man. Maybe you should have gone first.
Marcello's my better half, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. So myself, I think when I was growing up, I was just a sporty kid. I loved all sports. And I was actually very interested in how the body works. I'm older than Donna, so I graduated in 1989 and came into an industry where there was no industry. And I guess I grew up at that time, admiring people like Bruce Lee and his methodology of mixed martial arts. Arnold Schwarzenegger and methodology on strength training, people like Chuck Norris and all these guys that I followed as a young person. That really motivated me to not only just go into an industry that I was very passionate about, but also ended up wanting to help others. See, I grew up, my mum had schizophrenia, so she had paranoid schizophrenia, and she was institutionalized. So as a young man, I have 4 other brothers. We were split up and put into different homes and raised by different families each time my mum had an episode. This really motivated me to focus on health. That's I thought once I know how to fix my mum, and she would never have to be institutionalized again. So really that was passion, is helping her. And then ultimately I was thrust into helping my friends' partners, girlfriends with eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, and so forth. And so before I knew it, I spent most of my days just studying different modalities, whether it was nutrition, mental health, physical health, and so on, physiotherapy, chiropractic. It didn't matter what someone knew. My interest was, how do I get to know that to help others within their health and wellness goals? It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I discovered that predominantly men, when they had careers, no matter how successful they were in their career, they just felt a sense of dissatisfaction, discontent with their lives. And that really led me to start studying a Buddhist practice called the Satipatthana Sutta, which is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Back then, I remember my mum asking me, why do you study that? Why don't you just go and study psychology? I'm like, no, you don't understand, Mum. This is the foundation of understanding the mind. And it's an original text. It's 2,500 years old. And effectively it goes into understanding all habits of the mind and how to come out of it to the other side with a sense of gratitude, contentment, openness, vulnerability, and ultimately happiness. So that's been my journey.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, I wasn't sure you were going to be able to top Donna's, but, and I understand coming from a place of personal struggle. I mean, my heart goes out to you, and I can understand what some of that was like for you. And, but in some ways I can't imagine. And it's, knowing that kind of forced you along a path of discovery, to help, others and, those close to you and beyond is pretty awesome stuff, man. So, I feel that. Yeah. So, all right, cool. Well, all right. Well, now we know what has kind of motivated you guys to get to this spot. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts a little bit and talk about some detail. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. So I was thinking we could start off with like some of like the physical health stuff, because I think like that's the stuff that sticks out to the people in our industry in terms of like sitting in front of a computer or being on your phone all day, or like all of these different things. And there are a few different like subtopics that Donna and I thought, okay, these are the important ones that we could potentially like scratch the surface of. I mean, Donna and I can literally have 3-hour phone calls. So we're going to really try to keep this like high level, I guess. And maybe like 5 to 10 minutes like per section. We'll see how we go. But the first one, I know, Donna, I'm trying. So the first thing that we could probably jump into, which is a topic that we talk a lot about, Donna, is sleep. And sleep is one of your favorite topics. And I think that a lot of people who do work on tech, sleep does become an issue in terms of like blue light and getting caught in these like behavioral loops on social media and things like that, losing track of time. And then before they know it, it's 2 a.m. and they're like, oh my God, I need to get like 4 hours of sleep before I wake up to start another day. So, I mean, I was thinking like if you could explain like how sleep works, touch on what the circadian rhythm is, because I know that you mentioned that, but there'll be people in our audience who don't know what that is. And then whatever other topics that you want to talk about.
Awesome. So we'll start with sleep.
Sleep. Let's talk about sleep.
Let's talk about sleep, baby. Yeah, this is big for me. I because I'm I'm so overly particular about sleep, and I'm always so worried about not getting enough, and I always feel like, literally is the thing I'm probably chasing more than anything is being properly rested. It's almost to the point that when you overthink it, it gets so stressful. I'm terrible when I've got something important coming up the next day that I have to sleep because I'm not the type. Some people, it's like as soon as their head hits the pillow, they're out. For me, I'm the exact opposite. Like I will torture myself, not intentionally, but it's like my brain just does its own thing and will be like, nope, sleep's not happening for you. In fact, you're just going to stay up for the next X amount of hours and then stress about how you're not sleeping. And then it just stacks on itself, So, and I think as I've gotten older, even though, there was a point where I was a lot heavier, I lost a lot of weight, that definitely improved my sleep. It stopped me from snoring. And, there's things. And, I've also noticed that when I can get my diet in check, I could do a better job and it improves my sleep as well. But I think as I've gotten older, it's gotten harder, and getting a good night's sleep is that's it's like the holy grail. I'm still searching, so, but anyway, so go ahead. I just, letting you know this one for me, I'm like, let's go, let's get it.
There's really lots to unpack in order for everyone to understand how this whole rhythm works. But yeah, sleep is the number one thing that all of us absolutely need in order for us to have, peak physical and mental health in our life. It's basically an unconscious state where your brain is more responsive to the internal stimuli rather than the external stimuli that we're exposed to every day. So when you're sleeping, your brain basically gets the repair that it needs, and it's an active process that we need literally every 24 hours in order for us to detoxify and to heal and to regenerate. So for adults like our age, say 18 and beyond, we need at least 7 hours of sleep every single night. Apparently the research is saying that, most adults, is less than 7 hours a night. Whereas if you think of like teenagers and children or little ones, they just sleep all the time. If you think about our babies, in order for them to grow and to regenerate, they're sleeping all the time. So between the age of 3 and 5, they literally need between 10 and 13 hours of sleep every single night. Between the age of 6 and 12, they need between 10 and 12 hours per night. Mm. And for all teenagers, they need between, I'll say, 13 to 18 years of age, they need between 8 to 10 hours every night in order for this process to happen. So we've noticed over the last, 30, 40 years that there's been a major decline in our ability to heal. So without sleep, you're literally down regulating your ability to do absolutely everything. So when your body doesn't sleep, it's basically your body is interpreting it as an absolute emergency, which causes many psychological and physiological effects. It leads to you wanting more sugar, where you literally need to crave sugar, and it literally shuts down the creative part of our brains. So it affects our metabolism, it affects our ability to focus, to concentrate, it affects our immune system, our emotional regulation, our hormones, our gut. It literally affects every physiological and psychological part of our mental, physical, and emotional health. So that's how important sleep is.
It's funny because I've seen, I've seen different studies and things that have talked about how many hours you actually need. And I think it's interesting to think about children needing more sleep than adults. And if those are the actual numbers, then, 7 hours, it's like, that feels rare. That's rare to me,
that's where we could probably talk about the circadian rhythm, Donna, and the benefits of going why human beings can't see in the dark, and why that's the time to be sleeping, and why when the sun rises, we are human beings and we can see in the light, and that is when we should be awake at first light.
Yeah, well, in order to explain the circadian rhythm, our circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour rhythm, it's a biological clock. Every single cell in our body has a clock that connects to our our genetics. So hence why it affects every part of our body. So the idea is to wake up with the sun and go down with the moon, because the sunlight has a physiological hormonal response on all of our neurotransmitters and hormones. And then as the light changes through the evening, when the sun goes down, there's another cascade of different hormones that occurs. So if you can align yourself to the sun-moon cycle, like what we're designed to do as a human species, you will literally flourish better than using artificial light. So to have a good night's sleep, you literally need to understand all of the hormones and transmitters in order for this process to happen. So did you want me to sort of explain the process of how the hormones and the neurotransmitters create you to have a good night's sleep?
Do you want to dive into that, JT?
I mean, I'm in. So, but I don't have anything else to do right now, so I'm good. But no, I think this is important stuff. I'd love to understand the science behind sleep better. I mean, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and you can read books, you can go and read different articles and whatnot. But when you have an actual expert that's willing to sit there and tell you, like, hey, this is what you need to know. It's like, this is why, this is why people pay for the privilege. So yes, so please, by all means.
Going down the rabbit hole, in order for us to understand sleep, we like when you wake up in the morning, I really want to acknowledge a girlfriend of mine. Her name's Shannon McNeil, and she delivers seminars on sleep. And what she says is that you need if you imagine all of the hormones and neurotransmitters being like board members that come to the boardroom to have a meeting. So if one of those board members is not present, sleep just won't happen. So if I can explain it like that, and there's certain neurotransmitters and hormones that are absolutely essential that need to have seats at the boardroom, and that's your melatonin, your cortisol. Hopefully your viewers have heard these words before. So melatonin is your sleep hormone. Cortisol is your wake hormone. You've got your thyroid hormones, your sex hormones, insulin, which is what balance your blood sugar levels, GABA, which is like your brakes, and then adenosine, which builds up throughout the day. So those are the key hormones and neurotransmitters. So in order for us to have a good night's sleep, you've got to think about all of those hormones and neurotransmitters need to be operational. They need to have a seat at the boardroom table. Now, the CEO of sleep is melatonin. So melatonin, as soon as it becomes dark, it takes 2 to 3 hours in order for melatonin to kick in. But if you have light exposure, like particularly blue light exposure, it's just not going to kick in. So we need to really have the discipline and the commitment to switching off blue light, or at least switching to amber light, which is the spectrum of the sun going down, in order for that process to happen. Now, that is the CEO of sleep. So you're not going to get to sleep if you don't have melatonin.
So what about these kids that are like going to sleep like on their iPads? Like they fall asleep on their iPads. Like that's a really common thing these days. Even for adults. I know some adults who will fall asleep on their phones. Yeah. They fall asleep on their phones. They'll be watching TikTok and they're like, I'm like, how does that even work?
Exactly. So because there's all of those hormones, like if you might be getting melatonin from your diet. You can literally get some trace elements of melatonin from having lots of phytonutrients in your diet. You can also get melatonin from serotonin. So when you get up in the morning, it's cortisol that wakes you up. And during the day, cortisol is meant to go down. So by the end of the day, cortisol goes down, and that's what initiates melatonin to actually work. Whereas some people, if you wake up in the morning and you've got little to no energy, it's because your cortisol levels are low rather than being high. So you just find it really, really hard to get out of bed, and you can get this dysregulated cortisol where then it goes up at night, and then you can't go to sleep. So in order for you to set that circadian rhythm, you want to get up in the morning, even if you're tired, and eventually over time you will reset that circadian rhythm so your cortisol is high or higher in the healthy range, and then it'll come down, and then your melatonin will kick in. So
What
It is
about
cortisol that gets you up in the morning.
and so what about the folks who take melatonin to sleep at night? You know, is that the kind of thing that you should be avoiding? Is it? I mean, they make it seem like melatonin is relatively harmless as you know, sleep aid. So is that true?
You can certainly use it, but if you start supplementing your body with melatonin, well, then your body just doesn't want to produce its own. Okay, so the idea is to produce it yourself. But you certainly can use melatonin supplements in order to reset that circadian rhythm. But you would be using it for a short period of time, because it's not a sleeping tablet as such. However, it is moving in that direction of a sleeping tablet. So once you start using sleeping tablets, it's really hard to balance your circadian rhythm. So when you get up in the morning, you literally want to be giving yourself natural UV light, because it's when you get that natural exposure of UV light that you make some serotonin. Now, serotonin is your happy hormone, and it's your, like if you're on antidepressants, for example, it's a form of serotonin. You get given this because it's your joy. But the important thing about serotonin is you need serotonin to make melatonin. Yeah, so when the light shines into the optic nerves, it sends a message to the hypothalamus in your brain to release serotonin. And then tryptophan, which is an amino acid that you get from protein, that also can make serotonin. And healthy gut function from a whole foods diet can make serotonin, or can make tryptophan that converts into serotonin. Now, that serotonin, if you don't have it, you don't have the backbone of what makes melatonin. So that serotonin with darkness makes melatonin. So to have a healthy night, so you need that light exposure. Yeah. Yep. So that's what people aren't realizing, that to make melatonin, you need serotonin. To have healthy melatonin, you need to have a good level of stress. When I say good level of stress, not high amounts of stress, but you want to be able to manage your stress, because cortisol is a stress hormone, and that will diminish your production of melatonin.
So clearly you recommend then, when you're really trying to get your sleep schedule lined up properly, the better that you can get lined up with the sun rising and setting, the better, right? I mean, that's like, so we won't talk about what people who, you know, work the night shift should do and things like that, but I guess it's really just as a baseline, if you can wake up with the sun and go to sleep with the sun going down, or go to sleep with the moon, if you will, you know, that's pretty key then.
Absolutely. And because when you balance your circadian rhythm, you're literally balancing every single hormone within your body. Like when it's out, everything's out. So in order for you to have good mental and physical performance in life, you really need to honor your sleep cycle, because then you're balancing all of those hormones and neurotransmitters. So your happy hormone being serotonin. There's also another board member, which is called GABA. So GABA is a neurotransmitter that gets released between the brain and the body. That is your brakes. You know, at the end of the day, where you just can't unwind. It's because you don't have brakes. And you get GABA from having healthy gut function. So from a whole foods diet that's really high in fiber, your gut bacteria makes GABA. It's called metabolites. The bacteria in our gut create metabolites, and one of those metabolites is GABA. So 50% of GABA is made from your gut bacteria, and that GABA becomes your brakes. It's interesting, you know, a lot of people do this, where you get home at the end of the day and you'll have a glass of wine. Why wine or alcohol is so good is because it binds to your GABA receptors. And so you get that feeling of like those breaks. But the problem is as much as initially you feel relaxed from having that glass of wine, we all know that alcohol is a stimulant. And it takes a lot of effort for your liver to detoxify that. And this process happens in the middle of the night because we do detoxification, phase 2 detoxification in the middle of the night. And because it's such a toxic substance, it wakes you up. It's really heating. It heats you up. So it's actually a stimulant. It's not a relaxant, but because it binds to your GABA receptors, you feel like you're relaxing, but then it'll wake you up through the night. It'll interfere with your deep sleep. And it's in your deep sleep that you get all of your physical repair.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah, that's really something. That's probably why when I drink too much, then it's like, you're waking up in the morning and, beyond the hangover, you can't sleep, and it's just, why is the room spinning? But okay, so are you guys vegetarians, vegans? Like, so when you mentioned diet, and then I'm assuming diet's a key aspect in sort of how you approach life. Like, what is your particular path there?
Well, I've explored, like I always use myself as a guinea pig, and I certainly don't think everyone is the same as me. Like when I'm working with a client, like I like to identify what's necessary for that person. So I've tried lots of things for myself. But the best thing for me is a balanced diet where I have a little bit of red meat. I don't eat a lot of it. I literally try to eat it because of, And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I do. It's my go-to was fish and poultry and obviously lots of vegetables. I try and have more complex carbohydrates, but I don't do very well on a lot of carbs, but I get a lot of my carbohydrates from vegetables. So I'm constantly, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, any meal that I'll eat, I'll make sure that I've got all the colors of the rainbow, because it's the colors, the pigment of the food that has different types of antioxidants in it. And you absolutely need antioxidants to protect your body from all of the changes that's happened in the modern world. I mean, let's face it, 20 years ago when I studied naturopathy, it's very different now. I used to tell people to eat lots of fruits and vegetables 20 years ago, whereas now I'm saying to people, try and go for organic or try and get, as fresh as possible, because the amount of chemicals that we're now exposed to, you really want to go hunting for real food. So I'll look for real food, get as much color as possible, get lots of vegetables, and then I'll have a little bit of red meat, fish, poultry. It's quite a balanced diet. I don't really have a lot of legumes. They don't do so well with me, but they're really, really good for you. So I'll continually try and build up my gut bacteria so I can accommodate and I can digest them. But you need lots and lots of fiber and all of these different phytonutrients in order for you to have that really good gut bacteria to produce serotonin and also GABA and dopamine, which is really important for motivation, purpose, and drive. So gut bacteria is really, really important. So that's my diet. That's what I tend to lean into.
Okay. For me, it's JT, a Mediterranean diet. Obviously, I mean, we were raised with red meat twice a week, fish twice a week, and legumes as your main meals 3 times a week. So we would have lentils, chickpeas, and whatnot, and then obviously lots of different salads. So you're mixing, celery, cucumber, tomatoes with lettuce, and different types of lettuce as well. So bitter as well as sweet, cos lettuce and things like that. Okay. Lots of olive oil, lots and lots of olive oil, lots of chili, lots of garlic. And to this day, I'm in my 50s. I have this, very similar diet.
Well, and it's funny because growing up in the United States, there was always the thing about like, and the people who live in the villages of Italy that don't eat any processed foods at all, they all live to be 110 years old. And, it's a bit, obviously exaggerated, but there's a lot of truth to that. And I find that to be the biggest challenge. I mean, I think a pescatarian diet obviously is great. I think if ultimately the more vegetables, the more fresh, healthy, real food, just trying to keep myself, my family, my kids from eating as much processed stuff as, we can avoid, the better, because it's
Yeah.
just, and you try to balance that convenience and the hectic lifestyle with trying to fit in those types of, and also the cost, right? The cost of some of the stuff to eat healthy is
That's
challenging,
right.
but yeah, I mean, it's
I
really,
think too, JT's one thing that Donna and I really focus on, which is very Mediterranean, is eating by the season.
mm,
The challenge in America and Australia is that you can get a particular type of fruit all year round. I mean, we've got great import abilities to bring in any food that we want. And so sometimes we're eating certain fruits and veggies that are not in season, but we eat them anyway. If you go back to Europe, you'll travel. I mean, 2018, we were going through Italy, and when we were asking for certain fruits, the answer was still the same. It's not in season, so they just didn't give it to you. They never bought it. They didn't even understand why you asked for it. So you could still travel Europe today in 2023, and they'll say to you, "No, sorry, that's not in season, so you don't eat it."
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, no, I mean, and some of this stuff just seems so intuitive, and we've gotten so far away from some of this, and again, it is a balance of convenience and cost and access and other things, but I just love the concept of just eating healthy, real food. It just doesn't. It feels good just thinking about it. So anyway, the way that sorry, Jen, I know I can be a little funny the way. But did you want to say something? I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize this.
Keep going. But I am going to start to move this along.
Nope, I got it. So on the sleep piece, then let's talk really quickly, because I know then what are your rules as far as eating before bed, tech before bed, exercising earlier or later in the day? I mean, what are those are three of the things that, and the caffeine intake. Like, when do you cut off the coffee? I'm literally drinking a Celsius. It's 5:00 in the afternoon my time, and even that alone is probably terrible. You're like, I should probably be drinking just black coffee, grown from.
No, you shouldn't actually.
No, I guess from time, like a timing standpoint, I think I'm probably too late in the day.
Yeah, you're probably going to get shocked by what she tells you right now.
Okay, well then let's go.
Well, another one of those board members I mentioned earlier is called adenosine. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm bringing up adenosine is because it directly links to the caffeine, to the answer to the caffeine. So when you wake up in the morning, you've literally got no adenosine, and it builds up during the day. So as it builds up during the day, you start to get drowsy and that feeling of wanting to go to sleep. And that's because it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which we all know. The sympathetic nervous system is that stress response. And when you go, you need those breaks. So you need that GABA and you need that adenosine to build up. So when you have caffeine, it's an adenosine receptor blocker, meaning that it doesn't build up anymore. You literally have to go back to starting again. So it takes about 8 hours to get that adenosine to build up in the body. So I recommend that you wouldn't be having caffeine. Like, you could probably go decaf, even though decaf has a little bit of caffeine still in it, or as green tea does, or any sort of tea. But you want to try and have your caffeine before 11 o'clock in the morning. That way it builds up for at least 8 hours.
Okay.
And that way you get to sleep.
So my 8 p.m. coffees and espressos and cappuccinos are bad luck then, I guess. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Fine.
You'll wake up in the morning with more energy.
Yeah. No, I get it.
JT's there smashing a prime at like 9 p.m. at night.
I am. I'm like, hey, Logan Paul said this is the way to do it. He said 8 p.m., drink your prime energy. It's 200 milligrams of caffeine. Let's go.
Wow.
No, that's the thing with these. You talk about the processed stuff and these drinks like Red Bulls and all that kind of stuff. That's literally,
Yeah.
So, okay. So, all right. So caffeine, 11 a.m. is the cutoff. What about eating in general before bed?
It's recommended not to go to bed on a full stomach, because you have to digest all of that food. So you want to be eating at least 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed at night. And you want your lightest meal to be at the end of the day. like I mentioned, insulin is what balances your blood sugar levels. So if you've got low blood sugar levels, so when I talk about your evening meal, it needs to be balanced with carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. A small meal, but you still need to have those macronutrients, because if you were just to have, say, sugar, your blood sugar levels will go up. It'll give you a hit of energy, but then they'll plummet. And when they plummet, it's a danger zone. So it'll wake you up. So it'll interfere with your sleep. So your evening meal, keep it light, have a balance of carbs, proteins, and fat, because that protein and fat added to the carbohydrate means that your blood sugar levels will be balanced, your insulin levels will be balanced through the night, and you'll have a good night's sleep.
Okay. And then 2 more questions. Exercise.
Oh,
so you work out in the morning versus the evening to get good sleep, or what is there afternoon? What's your take there?
I just think exercising at any time of the day, because you just need to be moving. But the research, and you'll find that as people get older, they'll really need to lean into having more of their exercise earlier in the day than in the evening, because again, it's a stimulant. And I guess it depends on the type of exercise. So I guess when I hear the word exercise, I think of that vigorous, hard type of exercise. You want to be doing that in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But in the evening, if it unwinds you, like you need a circuit breaker from work to home. Like if you're still carrying work in your mind and you've got this full head, you've got no headspace, there's nothing better than getting that adrenaline out of the body through just going for a walk or doing some yoga. But again, more of the calming, things that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the calming types of exercises to wind you down is what I'd recommend in the evening.
Okay.
It's actually a great segue, JT, because the next topic that I wanted to talk about.
Hey, I know. I told you, just get me in line. It's all good. I will not take it personal.
No, it's all really good. Like, I love all of this stuff, but I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to cover everything. And we may not get to, but we'll cover as much as we can. So movement for people in tech is like a big, big issue. And like, it's something that Donna will say to me, well, have you gone outside yet? Have you gone outside today? Like if I'm talking to her and I'm like, oh, I just feel crap today or whatever. And she's like, have you gone outside? Go sit outside, go in the sun, ground yourself, take your shoes off, move around. Did you go for have you done any exercise today? Like, what are you doing? So I think in terms of for people in tech, if you could touch on sitting and posture, and the importance of how often should we be getting up from our laptops and computers?
Dum,
dum, dum.
I'll just quickly add. Well, I'll add something, and then I'll let Donna speak. The question we always get asked is, how long do you exercise for, or how long do you meditate for? What type of foods do you eat? I think it's really important for your listeners to understand that. Find out how much do you move right now. So what do you eat right now? So JT spoke about that he has a particular drink of an afternoon. And rather than, we wouldn't come along and take that drink off him. We would be more inclined to say, how much water are you drinking? And, JT's answer may be, well, of an afternoon, I only have these particular drinks. So we'd say, okay, well, add a glass of water. How much movement do you have? Well, when I get caught up, Jen, when you get caught up on the computer, you may not move for, 6 to 8 hours. So we may say to you, okay, well, just stand for a minute and then sit back down and then continue. What that tends to do is it's a goal that's very simple to include into your daily life. It's attainable. So we're not coming along and taking something from you. We're more adding things into your life rather than taking something out of your life. And then little bit by little bit, as you're feeling a little bit better, you'll start doing more and more of that. So that's really important. When it comes to health and wellness, it's more the assessment for how healthy and well do I feel right now? So what's my marker? And then from there, you would then slowly add. So JT eventually only has half of that can of drink, and then eventually just doesn't feel like having that drink. You'll be drinking more water, that type of thing.
I definitely want to drink water
with,
now. Like I'm like thirstier than I've ever been. Now I'm like looking around. I'm like, I got water somewhere.
It's health. Believe it or not, wellness is addictive. The better you feel, the more you want to do that. And if the goal setting is attainable and it's quite small, with professionals, we get people that sit in an office all day, and they've got a small alarm clock, and every 55 minutes they stand up. They'll keep working on their computer for 1 minute, and then they sit back down and they continue. Now, before you know it, the habit becomes that they just stand up, and now they've got a standing desk and they'll just work away on their standing desk. And these are, men and women that have been in the office for many, many years, 20 plus years. They start creating that habit just simply because they see the benefit both mentally and physically. So, sorry, Donna, I'll leave it to you.
No, not at all. We just need to move in order for us to have the most performance in our day. So we have that mental cognition. We literally need to have a tunnel vision focus for, say, 90 minutes. That's what the research says, where we're on our computers. We get into a flow state, and then we get up and we need to move. And you need light exposure. So I think how I try and structure my day and what I try and encourage other people to do is as a goal to get 2 hours of light exposure. So if that means getting up and going for a walk in the morning, which is ideal because you get that hit of serotonin, you get your step count in, you feel motivated for the day, come back and have some breakfast, get a 90-minute flow state of, peak work. And then you need literally about 20 to 30 minutes as a break to relax your brain. So you literally need to go back outside, get natural light. That might be another 20 minutes of natural light, move around, do some stretches, let your brain relax so it's getting out of work mode. So you don't go from work mode back into texting or looking into computers. You literally want to step away from the screen, not have your eyes go into narrow spaces, but you want to look out into the horizon, get that light exposure. So you're producing that melatonin. So with exercise, or as a daily schedule, I would be trying to have a 90-minute flow state, and then getting up and going outside, relaxing your eyes, moving, and then getting back into a 90-minute flow state. And so you might have 4 90-minute flow states throughout the day, and then you'll exercise in the morning, have your breaks in between your flow state, and then go and do some light exercise in the afternoon. But you literally don't want to be sitting all day. It's so incredibly dangerous for your pelvic floor. Like, we've switched off our pelvic floors. And like, it's interesting because whenever I say pelvic floor, I do a pelvic floor. I don't know about you. Do you? Like, you want to be doing pelvic floor exercises. Like, if you think about most of the world that aren't Western, they're still getting down into, they call it the Asian squat. Like, we were naturally, and as children or as babies, we're in that natural squatting position. Women gave birth like that for years. A lot of people still go to the toilet like that. And when you're in that position, you activate your pelvic floor, and that strengthens your lower back. It improves how you digest and how you urinate and how all of your lower organs work.
Well, when you say that, so are you talking about like sitting like Indian style? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about something like...
Yeah, that's
okay.
it.
We refer to that in the States as crisscross applesauce, and
okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, that's what they say to the little kids when that's how they tell them, but it's sitting Indian style. And
Wow.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, you think culturally too, some things that are that sort of nuanced about just, posture and things. And of course, with the way that I overthink, or, the minute you start talking about posture, I'm immediately like, oh, I gotta, like get up straight because otherwise I'm normally like hunched over, like, like Quasimodo. The, what was I gonna say?
I think, oh, sorry. You go, JT.
No, no. The only other thing I was going to say is, I think that's the one that's a downside of remote work that was a little bit overlooked was just how going in and out of the office. When we went home for COVID, the one thing I realized is even though I was exercising even a bit more and more consistently because I had a little bit more access just to go outside and run or walk or what have you, if I wasn't doing that, like I was definitely even with a little bit more exercise, I was still putting on weight, I think, because how many steps I would otherwise take during the day, up a flight of steps, down, going outside of the office, going to this meeting, going to that thing, like versus just literally just being attached and strapped into that chair. So I think that, it's an underrated aspect, I think, and a negative in a way. I mean, there were a lot of positives to remote work. I mean, we can get into that whole argument about whatever, but I think that's one thing that people don't realize is how much you don't move if you are just home all day working, so.
Yeah. That incidental movement, you'll find, I think they did a study many years ago that when the remote control came in for the television and they found that people stopped moving X amount of kilometers per year. Just the fact that you had to get up and change a channel and then sit back down and get up and change a channel and sit back down. When they removed that and now you had a remote control, all of a sudden they calculated it was, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of kilometers that you would do every year just by moving back and forth. And you imagine how many times you change a channel, right, with that remote control. Imagine if you didn't have that remote control, you'd literally be getting up and changing things constantly. And that's the power of that incidental movement, like you say, when you have to go to the office. So you're walking up, get to the office and then going to the bathroom. When you're at home, you tend to push out 6, 7, 8 hours plus.
Yeah, you just sit. Yeah,
it's so true. Yeah.
My kids are like, what was it like when you didn't have the remote? It's like, well, it's pretty tough. We're walking uphill both ways to school, 7 miles in the snow. And, it's like that kind of thing. But it is interesting. I mean, and these are anything over time, right? It's the same thing around compounding interest and things. Like you realize like the impact that stuff has if you have enough time. How meaningful those kinds of things are. So, yeah.
One of my biggest tips for people would be whenever I take a phone call, and I spend a lot of time on my phone, as actually all of you know, because I talk to a lot of you on the phone. But when I'm on the phone, and most of you know this as well, I'm walking. Like I'm up, I'm walking. I don't sit down and take phone calls. So that's my number one tip. And like I said, like, if I have long phone calls, like particularly with Donna or closer friends, like I'll be walking around for 2-3 hours and I've already done my steps for the day just from that phone call. And it's kind of intentional / incidental because I'm intentionally doing it, but what else am I going to be doing? Just sitting down. Right. And the other tip that I would say to people is back to what Donna said about getting up and in the morning doing something active. And I think anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that because I just beach spam them constantly. But that's also, I'm not a huge fan of social media, but that does keep me a little bit accountable in that when I'm posting a picture of the beach, when I'm down there and it's at sunrise, it's because I'm down there and I'm doing it. And so it's more so for me to put that up there. It's that accountability that I'm like, yeah, I did that. Like I can look back and be like, yep, I'm doing what I need to do in these moments. So those are just a couple of little things that I do that might help.
There needs to be a lot more meetings where it's the walk and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, like being chained to the desk is very, very unhealthy. Like the Australian, the Australian government here, I don't know what it's like in the States there, but recommends that pretty much adults from 18 all the way up to 64 years of age, they need to be exercising for at least 30 to 60 minutes a day, 5 days per week, and 2 of those days needs to be resistance training. And if you don't do that, you've got higher chance of getting, heart disease and, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. So that would be what I would be recommending for everyone. Like, look at your calendar and go, where can I, always think of that light exposure, because that's going to help with serotonin to make melatonin. Obviously, it also, what I haven't mentioned is when you build up melatonin in your body, you can build it up cellularly. So every single cell of your body has a mitochondria, and that mitochondria is where we get our energy production from. And light exposure builds up systemic melatonin intracellularly, and that melatonin is a really important, it's the number one antioxidant that protects our body from oxidative damage from EMFs and things like that. So I'd be getting that light exposure, but then there's also exercise. So 5 days a week between 30 minutes to 60 minutes to offset all of those, diseases that we're all exposed to if you just don't move. And the statistics are 50% of adults aren't doing it. So it's diabolical. And technology is amazing. I love technology. And it is a superpower if you know how to use it. But you're not going to be super powerful if you lose your health, because health is your wealth. And we've become more lazy. And it's meant to give us the flexibility. Technology is meant to give us the flexibility where we can get out there and be superhuman and have all of our faculties together, not where we become lazy and we're chained to a desk. It's the opposite. So
Yeah, and but I will say one thing. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit about technology and some of the things, is that I do think that social media, I mean, there's a lot of negatives, but one of the positives, it forces people to see the way other people are sort of living, their habits, and and I do think that people are more cognizant than ever about, call it, the need to be healthy and exercise and take care of themselves and how they look. This thing about image and all of that stuff, it can be toxic and can be negative. But I do think it's forcing people to at least try to, now, to the extent that they're not saying, oh, let me go get Ozempic or something as a shortcut to just be skinnier, but to develop healthier habits like getting in the gym, working out. And I see it even with younger kids now. When I was 13, I have pretty young kids that are 13 and 11, and and they're like, they do a lot of the sports stuff, and they're doing training and and a lot more exercise and things. And some of their friends in and around that same age, especially as these kids are starting to hit puberty, and I have 2 boys, and and that kind of thing. Whereas when I was a kid, I wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff. Now, we were also doing a lot more sort of, call it, organic, like just running out in the neighborhood, and we'd be climbing trees and playing in the woods and doing stuff that's like, a lot more less structured, more natural, just, sort of living and playing. But kids today, young people today, professionals today are more cognizant than ever about, the need to kind of have your, to have your shit together, and I think that's an interesting positive byproduct of all of it.
Yeah. And especially social media, JT, I've spoken to you about this. Like, it's not my favorite thing for a number of reasons. But I will say, connection's really important. And we will get into some of this mindfulness stuff with Marcello. And the biggest thing for social media, I think, that people need to learn is what you consume consumes you. So you actually have a choice as to what content you're consuming, who you're following, and that's really important. That's really important for me for social media. But before we get into that, I just want to cover a couple more physical health topics with Donna. And we're going to have to really be high level about this because of time. 2 things that I find really interesting is that when you're on devices, one, people don't blink a lot, and 2, people hold their breath when they're on computers or texting and emailing. So I find those two things really interesting, and I think probably quite serious for physical health, if we're not like mindful of those and make some like actual choices to improve that.
Well, when it comes to blinking, it basically just means that your eyes are tired. So your visual system is directly linked to your brain. Your eyes are your brain popping out of your skull. So that's how close your visual system is to your cognition. So when you start blinking, it literally just means that your brain is tired and you're not going to be able to concentrate for much longer. Your learning diminishes and you're just not going to absorb any more information. And this is when, in order for you to look after your eyes, we need to be very mindful that your eyes or your visual system, again, can only handle so much. And that's why people start getting headaches. And the fact that they hold their breath means their shoulders are tight. Holding your breath is a stress response. So you're going into an adrenaline state. So you've got this excessive adrenaline, which is going to cause a lot of aches and pains in your body. And eventually your cortisol levels will go up. And as we know, that will dysregulate your sleep cycle. So the mindfulness part is, okay, I'm holding my breath, and focus on your breathing. Nasal breathing is the best type of breathing. Most people that are holding their breath are mouth breathers. And the reason why they're breathing through their mouths is because their posture has gone. So if when you get the round shoulders and your head goes out, you'll literally
Not me.
It's not a good look. As soon as that happens and your head goes out, it's hard to breathe through your nose. Like if you try to breathe through your nose, and breathing through your nose is a diaphragmatic breath, which is the best way to oxygenate your body. So you literally have to pull your head in and sit up on your sitting bones in order for you to be able to breathe diaphragmatically and in and out through your nose. So that's one of the main reasons that people do hold their breath, is it's a posture thing. So if you become mindful that your postures change, and you'll start to feel headachy, you'll start blinking because your brain's tired. It literally means get up, do some yoga. I always encourage people to go on the floor. I don't say go and do a yoga class or anything, but just get down on the floor. Even laying flat on your back, you just literally you begin to feel that your backbones just go just crack back into place because you've become like that. So just laying flat on your back, put like a book behind your head just to align your chin into the proper position. Do some basic stretches just to get that synovial fluid through your joints and get back and sit back down or go to a standing station, and then be more aligned with your posture, keeping your chin in and diaphragmatically breathing. They say that when you diaphragmatically breathe, that's when, or if you're feeling stressed because you've been holding on to your breath, you want to lengthen your exhalation. And as you lengthen the exhalation, again through your nose, you'll stimulate that GABA response, which is your brakes, which will get you out of that stress response. And you want to be out of that stress response because you get more creativity when you're not under extreme amounts of stress. You're in that, get more into that flow state and that more productive work when you're able to, breathe. So hopefully that answers your question, Jen.
Yes. Breathing is important, everyone. Breathing
Yes.
is important.
Ideally through your nose, not through your mouth. And posture helps you to do that.
Well, and it's funny because not funny, but when I went to one of my first retreats, I basically had to relearn how to breathe properly. And I know that may sound strange to some people, but I'm a shallow breather. So I breathe up here. And learning how to breathe like right down into my diaphragm, and going and doing some like lessons and working with some people to do that has been amazing because, they say, I don't know, I've been told, I may have this wrong, but it like can reset the nervous system. If you're in a particular stress state or whatever.
Jen, we one of the first assessments that we ask from people is to take a deep breath. If your listeners stood in front of a mirror and just took a deep breath, one of the things they may notice is they automatically rise through their chest. So they'll might do that sort of thing. And then straight away you'll be able to say to them, well, you're not diaphragmatically breathing. Your belly actually hasn't extended. You're shallow breathing, and that's a telltale sign. So, and it's a very simple task. It's like, okay, take a deep breath, and everybody is just, most people. So, in our experience, at least 8 out of 10 people will take a deep breath this way, and try and expand up, and then straight away you'll say to them, you tend to breathe shallow. From playing sports, as both Donna and I have, regardless of whatever level, it wasn't until we started studying Qigong, the practice of breath work, and Tai Chi Chuan and Zen meditation, only then did we realize how poorly we were breathing. And, I boxed for many years, competitive. Breath is very important in boxing. We've done strength training for almost 30 years. It really wasn't until we started doing the practice of these ancient practices did we realize that, we just, we didn't breathe the way we should be breathing. So it's really not just you. It's wild. If you go into any sporting institution and you'll watch young people, training, I'm sure JT, same with your kids. When we start with kids, the first thing we do is teach them how to breathe. And if you look at when, kids lose their cool, so to speak, they get very frustrated, whether it's in a sportive, competitive or at home. If you just would get them to just pause and do a breath work, even just for a couple of minutes, it's like, I know when we were raising our daughter and she would get quite frustrated, we would just say to her, how about you do this? How about you do some breathing and then come back and tell us exactly what's on your mind? And she would always come back just a different person, just that state of mind, that clarity, that ability to tell you exactly what was happening to her. And she nailed it every time. And I'm talking not when she was 15, and I'm talking the first time we noticed that she was almost 4 years old. And I remember she got so angry and just went to yell, and we just said to her, well, we want to listen to everything you've got to say if you can just do your breathing exercises first. And Jen, she came back she spoke as an adult.
She could articulate herself. She was calm and clear. And that's it. Like as a chronic asthmatic, this was my biggest thing. I was a mouth breather. But people that suffer from anxiety, they're mouth breathers, and the amount of anxiety that's happening, there's not many people that I meet that don't suffer from anxiety, and they haven't learned how to breathe properly. Like when you breathe through your mouth, you activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight, flight, freeze response. You go into a stress state, and you literally shut down parts of your brain, and you just can't be productive when you're in a stress state. So by you just noticing and being mindful that, I'm holding my breath and I'm going into that head spin or that anxiety state, you just breathe through your nose, do long, slow inhalations through your nose and exhalations through your nose with good posture. And within a minute is the fastest way to regulate your nervous system. You literally go out of your sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic nervous system, and then within a minute, you've got a completely different state of mind, and your body begins to heal and you begin to think clearly. And that's literally what was happening with our daughter when she was in that overwhelmed state. Just went away, did her breathing for 1 minute, came back with a completely different mind. And the fastest way to do that is not taking a drug. It is breath work, and it's that simple.
And I think that can definitely be applied in the workplace or in your home office, like whatever you're doing. Like I know that I do it every single day. Even I'll get an email and I'll be like, all right, time to go over here and take a few breaths.
Yeah.
And also, I guess it's official, Drew, JT, that we will be getting Drew to do a breathwork course.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure he'll be lining right up for that. Although a lot of this stuff is actually, we joke around, as serious as
I know, I'm
is.
joking.
No, but even like, from a diet, like, they're borderline vegan. I mean, they're, kind of on top of a lot of that stuff already.
No,
and,
he's into all this stuff. We've had lots of chats about all like these topics and stuff. Like I know that he's really into it.
But I like the idea of the breath work to calm him down. That's like, that might become my thing. I'll use that with my kids, my wife, and with Drew. I'll be set, so, and myself,
exactly.
right?
But remember that GABA too, which is from gut bacteria having a healthy diet. GABA is your natural, I didn't say this before, but GABA is your natural anti-anxiety. It is a neurotransmitter that we make, that we need in order to go to sleep. It's the breaks. You make that in your gut from having a healthy diet, loads of vegetables, but you also need good protein in order to make the neurotransmitters as well.
Excellent.
MediaOptions is the industry's leading domain broker specializing in domain acquisitions, high-value domain sales, and domain name consultation. As pioneers and thought leaders on the subject of the domain aftermarket and domain name value, plus through their clear domain acquisition service, MediaOptions offers startups and established corporations an unparalleled scope of high-value domain options, providing access to domain names and curation technologies not available elsewhere. MediaOptions believes in the power of a great domain name and is dedicated to helping you obtain yours. Call or email today to put a domain to work for you.
Well, this has all been amazing because we've covered like sleep, nutrition, eye health, breath work. But what I really want to dive into before we run out of time is the mindfulness stuff with the master of minds. Because this guy,
we said it in the AKA. So, it's legit,
so I think this is the stuff that a lot of the people in our industry may find like really beneficial and interesting because a lot of us work solo. So you're stuck with most of your thoughts most of the day, like sitting in front of a computer. And a lot of the people in our industry, particularly within our circle, JT, are very successful people. So I'm just really interested in like how it may resonate with them to learn a bit more about mindfulness, mindset, mental performance, how they can integrate that into their businesses or their daily lives. Go.
All right. So I think the first thing you want to ask yourself is, are you rich or are you wealthy? And what the two have in common and what they are different in. There are a lot of rich people. We've been very fortunate to look after people that have been very successful in business. They've made a lot of money over their period of time. But as mentioned, what I started noticing very early on in the piece on this health journey is that there wasn't a lot of wealthy people that we met. And what I mean by that is they didn't have a balance, a broad spectrum of wealth through every aspect of their life. So they may have been successful in their professional life. And we named it hero to zero. So, there's some CEO of some company or top of their class in some sporting event. But then when they go into their personal life, they drop straight down to zero. So they are not good communicators. They find themselves that they're not comfortable, even in their home life. They may struggle raising their children. They may struggle in their personal relationship or friendships. And so that really stood out to us a lot on how can you be, such a champion in one aspect, but be really neglectful or struggle in many other aspects of your life, whether it becomes exercise or nutrition or as I say, personal relationships. And so when we started looking into what wealth actually meant, and my personal journey in watching my mum when her mind actually started attacking her, and what I guess the medical industry, how they looked after at that time through medication and institution, it sort of led me to want to find out more about how do we cultivate wealth within our mental state. And so first you have to understand the difference between brain function and cultivation of mind itself. So when we talk about, say, consumerism, imagine if you ate McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you had that breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, 7 days a week, for years on end. Well, you've already had shows where, gentlemen have gone off and they've had Macca's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a month or 3 months and whatnot. And then they take their health, blood pressure and whatnot, and they find, they put on X amount of weight and, like their health just really deteriorated very quickly.
Yeah, that's Supersize Me is the
Supersize, right? Sorry, McDonald's. Sorry, McDonald's, to bring that up again.
No, really quick, for what it's worth, it's when I watched that movie, it actually made me want to go get McDonald's, even though it was like as he's getting his blood work done, I'm like, I want to eat a Big Mac so bad, even though as he's going back for his blood work, it's getting like progressively worse. But but okay, go ahead.
How good are the fries at Macca's? But so when you talk about that, this consumption, this overconsumption of a particular type of food, you realize, okay, physically it's not good for you. Well, what people don't realize is how much your brain actually consumes passively and actively. So passively, there's hundreds of thousands of bits of information that enter your brain per second without you even realizing it. And so without you realizing it, it starts creating a mental attitude. So you start looking at things more, I won't say negatively, but you do start looking at things as you process information of, how can this hurt me? And this is a primal state of your mind. Look at when you first walk into a room that you don't know a lot of people. Your mind automatically goes into a state of safe or not safe. You will look at, who do I know in this room? And you'll gravitate to that person. Or you'll gravitate to alcohol. I'm going to have a drink because I need to calm myself. You're feeling anxious. In sporting events, watch when you get to a big sporting event, whether you're playing the sport or you're actually watching the sport, watch your anxiety levels start to increase. So you automatically go into either food or alcohol and whatnot, or as a team, you're really relying on your teammates to try and maintain this level of anxiousness or excitement or adrenaline that's happening. So all these things are happening to you actively or even passively. So mindfulness starts teaching you to become aware of, what are the things that I'm thinking about on a daily basis. Now, my background is martial arts. So I've studied 5 different forms of martial arts, Western boxing for many years. And when I started doing this training, I realized that my mind was continually processing information of fighting, so just if this person was to do this, I would do this. If this person attacked me this way, I would do it this way. Not to sit in this position because you're more vulnerable for a surprise attack. This is your mind's continually repeating the same thing. So when I started thinking about that, I realized, man, I met my wife. We had a little girl, and I started reacting to things rather than a 2 out of 10. My reaction was a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. So I had an overreaction to things that ordinarily most people wouldn't even be thinking about, right? And that's really was, I guess, for me, the first state of, okay, if my mind is processing information without me realizing it, and if I'm creating this thought process without me really being cognitive of it, that means I'm actually not in charge of the ship that I'm steering. I'm just being reactive, dependent on my external world. Yeah. That really blew me away. When I first get people to start mindfulness, I get them to just keep a diary, just a daily ledger. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. You can literally just at the end of each day or at the end of the week, you can turn around and say, oh, I woke up this morning, I was feeling down and went through the day, had some great conversations. What you will notice every week is that you will actually have a set pattern, a set way of thinking, a set way of seeing the world through your understanding of what the world is happening. And I often say to clients, is what I'm seeing what's actually happening, or is it just how I'm interpreting it? And that's really the power of mindfulness is if Donna and I are watching a sunrise and I'm indifferent, or I'm deep in thought in something else, or I don't get the same joy or excitement than Donna does about this sunrise, then did her and I see the same sunrise? Same with a movie. You and I may be watching the same movie. I get a completely a different take from that movie than what you would. So who's going to be right about that movie, you or I? That's what really interested me.
But Barbie was really good, Marcello. I'm just going to say, like,
no, I have
Barbie
not
was
seen
really
good. I've not seen it.
I thought the new Mission Impossible was really good. I haven't seen the Oppenheimer movie yet, but the new Mission Impossible was great.
But I guess, like, is this where the saying perspective is subjective? Like, in terms of, like, it depends on the subject's perspective. But then I guess with mindfulness, taking it to that next step, aren't you really in control of that perspective if you can harness mindfulness?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we look at the ability of initially, what is it that I'm actually seeing? Is that now actually happening? So if this person's upset at me, is it because they just don't like me, or they're just upset, from an action that I may have committed? But also, we then move on to relative truth and ultimate truth. So what you call perspective, we look at if it's raining outside, straight away I think, oh God, that's it, my day's finished. It's raining. It's raining on me. But that's relative truth. So what is actually happening to me, right? And that's important. But ultimate truth is it's just raining. That's all it is. It didn't choose to rain because you decided to go for a jog this morning. It just it's raining. Not just on you, but on hundreds of thousands of people. So get an umbrella, jog inside, go to the gym instead, get an Uber. You could do a myriad of other things limited by how quickly you gain perspective, how quickly you get out of the relative truth and going into an ultimate truth, a different viewpoint of what is actually happening.
So what are some of the tips and tricks to be able to gain that kind of perspective in the moment, right? Because literally before we got on the show today, I couldn't find my new glasses, which I wanted to wear because they're UV light blocking and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect for today's show. I can't find them. I'm like, this is the worst. I'm having the worst day. Of course this is happening. This is happening to me and everything else, exactly in line with what you said, which, and my wife will say it to me or I'll say it to her. And in the moment, neither one of us ever seem able to sway the other to say, look, keep it in perspective, right? Like it's so much, think about like you're making such a big deal about such a minor thing.
Yeah.
But how do you actually, how do you recenter at the time in the moment?
All right. Breath. I know this is really simple, but breath. Take notice that when you were this morning looking for your glasses, you were holding your breath. So the first thing that we do is this long, slow, deep exhalation. When you do that, you'll notice how much breath you were actually holding on to. That'll also force you to then take a slow, long, deep breath in. Now, if you did that, 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, initially, and I'll say this to all your listeners, initially, there may not be a lot of change. You may turn around and still get annoyed and still frantically look for those glasses.
I still hate everybody.
That's it. But as time passes, and this is really important for all your listeners to understand, compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. Mm-hmm. When you first start your training, it will seem like nothing is happening. But as you build this habit of exhalation, the second thing we then move on to doing as we start inhaling and exhaling is we ask ourselves, what's the opportunity in this moment? So where is this opportunity in this moment? So for yourself, JT, you could quite easily have said, I'm just going to sit for a sec. I know on a subconscious level, I know where I've left those glasses. But consciously, when I'm frantic and I'm rushing around looking for those glasses, I'm never going to find them. How many times you've been in conversation and you couldn't think of someone's name or you couldn't think of a situation, but then when you walk away, maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour later, you go, that's the name of that guy. Let me text them. And that's because what we talk about is going from that sympathetic, that fight, flight, to parasympathetic, that calm state where you can actually tap into every different part of your brain to source out the information that you were looking for. Yep. For people who have certain jobs that are high-performing jobs, so, you own your own company or you're CEO, you're under that level of stress.
Produce a podcast, right?
That's it. You're producing podcasts. You're looking for glasses. It really, JT, it's interesting you say perception is reality, right? Yeah. So if you find if your response starts becoming stress, that is how I respond, through stress, then your perception of anything that you're going to do is stress. Sitting here in this podcast, if my relationship of public speaking caused me stress and anxiety, then I would be, and I'm very mindful before I say this, but I would be experiencing, if in my understanding, the same stress response that a firefighter is experiencing when they're running into a burning building. Mm-hmm. And you'll find, especially today, where young people are on these devices, when you see them experience stress and anxiety, to them, they're experiencing the same effects as a firefighter or a police officer in a stressful situation, or someone in the military, being deployed. The perception is your reality.
Yeah.
And mindfulness starts teaching you to create a different perception, to start looking at different opportunities of what you're actually interpreting, understanding that your interpretation is yours and may be completely different to somebody else. The next thing we look at is also the habit of, I'm speaking the truth. You will hear this the last couple of years. I've noticed on whether it's influencers, whether it's scientists through COVID, it doesn't matter. The people are very quick to say, I'm speaking the truth. And in our training, we're like, well, man, does that mean you're the arbiter of truth? Like,
Sure.
the truth is the truth? Okay, that's really bizarre to us. You can speak your understanding. You can speak what your version of what the truth is for yourself, but you can't really speak the truth, meaning you're speaking for everybody across the board.
Sure.
And that's really another set of habits of mindfulness. Is first we start journaling, look at patterns. We start looking at how we make everything about us, how it's affecting us. Then we start learning to pause whenever we feel stressed or anxious. We start learning how to pause. So breathe, long exhalations, long inhalations. Then we start creating the habit of, what is the opportunity in this moment? I'll share something personal that just recently happened. So my father passed away last week, Monday. And
I'm so sorry, man.
That's okay. Thank you. And I received the news at 10:15 a.m. and I'm having a break. I have got half an hour break, and I'm about to then, ordinarily I'd see about 18 clients back to back through the day. And so I've got a half an hour break, and then I'm going back to work. And really, my client doesn't want to see or hear anything that's going on in my personal life, so to speak. It's really all about them. So when I sit and look at what is the opportunity in this very same moment, well, I can sit and process all the fantastic things that I experienced, the things that I was very, very grateful for of my father, but I also can experience all the conflict that him and I experienced together. And if I just sit and pause and allow that process to happen, whilst I focus on my breath, you'd be amazed how much information your brain can actually process. So 30 minutes later, when I started work and I continued working client back to back and, just focus just on them, the day flew. The days have flown. It's given me a different perspective also on the relationship that I got to have with him. And it meant that I didn't have to cancel my days. I didn't have to turn up to sessions and bring all my drama and so forth into the situation. Yeah, all that baggage. And this comes down to the question: where's the opportunity in this? What can I gain from this moment, just for this moment?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot. I mean, there's obviously a lot to unpack there. I think the idea of perspective and how you can kind of slow down in the moment. I mean, it's really interesting. You make the point about how when we're feeling stressed about things that aren't really even that big of deals, but they're so important to us because we're so self-focused, that you're feeling the same level of stress when you're looking for your glasses as, a firefighter would going into a burning building. And then you really need to almost think about it in that way. I think that it's helpful to say to yourself, am I literally saving children from a burning building right now? Because if I'm not, yes, like, would you all be getting the benefit of looking at my brand new glasses and being like, man, that's amazing?
That's
Yes, you
yes,
would.
yes.
So much better if you had those glasses.
But it's, but when you put it in perspective, and I think that when you look at some of the most high performing individuals, you realize too what you notice about them, and at least just coming to mind a few folks, Kobe Bryant, some athletes, and the Steve Jobs, yeah, some world leaders, they're the ones that you might think are doing a good job or actually doing a good job, right? We're not going to pick sides or anything today, but but you realize, like, I'm always amazed at how they perform under pressure, right? I think that's part of where you're talking about how you excel at how you are, and I see it with my own kids, and and it's a combination. What I've seen is it's the ability to sort of have that kind of perspective, right? Some people are just sort of built that way, but not everyone is, and you have to learn these things. And for a lot of us, we do. I'm the opposite. I'm neurotic. I overthink everything. I mean, I'm a maximizer. So every decision that I make is, tyranny of choice. I'm over wrought with, the indecision because I don't want to make the wrong choice or miss, an opportunity and some of those things. But, and I do think it's the ability for some of these folks who can be in the moment, slow things down, live with the, hey, that was the last moment. This is the next moment. I'm not going to dwell on the past, and I'm just going to continue to, just a quick shout out to my 13-year-old who was playing in a basketball game about a week or two ago. In a really tense environment. I mean, the air conditioning was broken. We're in a Florida gym. It's literally 100 degrees. He's got the opposing team's parents screaming at him. You know what I mean? It's like in these things. And I actually think this is where I really like youth sports for kids, because our kids don't live the same kind of life that a lot of us did, where we had certain, things that we had to overcome. They live these blessed, entitled lives. And I mean that in a positive way, but but what adversity they have to overcome. Like, this actually gives them some actual challenges in life, because the rest of their life is pretty easy. But it's the preparation and the work that goes into it. And then it's also understanding that if you're putting in that kind of time and that effort and you're really doing your best, like, it's going to be what it's going to be. I mean, there's certain things that you can control, certain things that you cannot. And then when you're in that moment, just do your best to, slow it down, let your training and do what it does, and make the best decision you can make in the moment, and try not to dwell on the past, the mistakes, and the things that you can't control. So, easier said than done. It's only taken me 45 plus years to even have any of that perspective. So
the thing is to, I think what mindfulness teaches you is that your external world doesn't have to dictate your internal world.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, it's my choice to be content with life. It's my choice to be happy, to be harmonious, to be calm. That's my choice. And that's not dependent on my external world, which means that if, Donna and I disagree with something, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to spend the rest of the day with her. It doesn't mean that, we're not going to go and watch a movie. It doesn't mean that we don't go shopping together. That we just wouldn't let a disagreement, argument, whatever you want to call it, we wouldn't let that get in the way of us two spending time together. And that's same how we've raised our daughter. It's the same that we share with our personal clients. Just because you've had a bad day, that doesn't dictate how I turn up to home. I often share this with my male clients is my daughter doesn't care how many people I've worked with during the day. She doesn't care how many people I've helped. She only cares about the man that turns up to the house, at the end of the day. And if I'm not being present with her, and I'm not being patient, and I'm not being calm and open and loving towards her, well, that's the person that she's seeing. Is this stressed and fatigued and aggro and despondent and whatnot. So you imagine our clients walking up to our daughter and saying, "Wow, your parents are so awesome," and then she turns around and says, "Well, I don't get that at all at home. I see a completely different person." So it's the next stage of your mindfulness journey is, don't rely on your external world or whatever's happening during the day to dictate your choice. Like, how do you want to present with yourself and the people around you? And you can keep taking it a step further. Where recently I had a member of a private club, and for whatever reason he took a dislike to me, and he went literally out of his way to get me kicked out of this club. Now, we've been members for 20 plus years. This particular member has been a member for even longer, almost 30 years. And I honestly I could not figure out what the issue was. But it never stopped me from always saying good morning and good evening and I hope you're well and so forth. And this went on for many months. In the end, the staff around at this club and even the CEO, it showed up that he had misunderstood what was happening business-wise. And he misunderstood the person. He thought it was I was the instigator of something, and he got it was a completely different member. And so for all those months that he was being spiteful, attacking, and whatever, rude, and whatever you want to call it,
the wrong guy.
The perspective is, this isn't really happening to me. Something's going on with this person, and that's not going to dictate to me how polite I'm going to continue being with this person. Mindfulness doesn't turn you silly, doesn't make you stupid. You're acutely aware of what's happening. It's just what you decide to do with that. That's the power of mindfulness.
I love it. And yeah, we're basically running up on time.
Amazing. Yes.
So I just want a couple comments, and I mean, we could continue obviously for a long time, but
I know poor Billy's already he had like a 2-hour episode to edit last time, and now he's going to have another 2-hour episode. We love you, Billy.
Yes, it is all love, Billy. And, just keep drinking caffeine. It doesn't matter about the time. Don't worry about it. Whatever it takes to get it done.
Yeah, you got to stop. We can start.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to get it done. No, but I think the mindfulness stuff is so powerful. And what I think is great, I've read a couple, anecdotes or, sort of pieces of information. One of the things that has stuck with me a bit around this is that they talk about people who go through really traumatic stuff, like lose a limb or something like that. And, they talk about how people who are predisposed to be a certain, sort of frame of mind, cope with those kinds of things in ways that they will get over something like that even more quickly or more productively than somebody else dealing with something much more minor, right? Because of the way that their frame of mind is, and sort of like this baseline happiness and understanding of the things they can control versus the things they can't. And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about, which is when you realize that, hey, the things that are out of your control are out of your control. The things that you can control are how it's like, I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I react to it. That's those kinds of things. And I know we say it a lot. It's hard to put it in practice. And I think that's where the real special sauce comes in. And that's where I'm sure your clients, are really getting, their money's worth, is that, to be able to put those kinds of things in practice so that it doesn't just become a platitude or something that you say, but it's a way that you actually live. And it's, and it's what you actually do in real life. And, and we'd all be better for it, man. So it's all, great stuff. So I thought you were going to say there's still a problem with the member. We're going to have to come to Australia and have the conversation with him in person and show him some things that he can't control. You know what I'm saying? But we don't have to. I'm glad that there's a happy ending there. That's great. Anyway,
everything passes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No. And I think, look, I love where you guys are coming from. I mean, you've got, some of this, such a wide range when you think about, the way you approach everything from nutrition to sleep to, again, how, the mindfulness piece, the mental performance, like, with the, a baseline of, health and, martial arts and some of the other stuff and exercise and food. And I mean, it's just, it's a holistic approach to your life in a real super positive way, man. I love it, man. I think it's awesome. And, yeah. So Jen, I'm gonna go run through the kind of the end here, unless you have anything else that you want to say here as we close it up.
I just wanted to thank both Donna and Marcello for coming on. I'm just so grateful for your time and basically my two worlds coming together today.
Yeah.
So it's just been amazing. And I just hope our audience, there's some takeaways there that they can get. And I mean, we covered a lot of things, and I really think that there is. So thank you so much.
100%. And I think, we'll have the links on our site so that people can find the website and find you guys and maybe follow you on social and all that good stuff. So, because I think just introducing you all to the audience is a super beneficial thing for all of them. And, I think it's great. I mean, look, we're all trying to improve, and you guys are really helping, walking the walk and helping people do that. And I love it. I think it's awesome. And so thank you so much. By the way, I joined AKA since I didn't, it's AKA Donatello. Like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I was going to throw that one in earlier.
That's a good one. Yes.
But combining the names and all that good stuff. But listen, thank you so much. Much appreciated. I love this. I thought this was awesome. And to the audience, I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, we were, this wasn't our typical domain focused stuff, but this is also why Jen and I are looking to do this Down the Rabbit Hole series like this, so that we can introduce everybody to some things that they might not otherwise get exposure to. And hopefully they get some benefit from, or at least enjoy the time that they take listening or watching the show. So thank you to everybody for tuning in, because like I say on every show, without you, there is no us. So thank you very, very much. And of course, thank you to Jen. That it's, as much as I appreciate you being here doing this. And with that, we'll say goodbye. And we'll see you next time here on Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains. And I'll say fair farin, which is a Scottish phrase meaning good journey. May you travel far under fair skies and even further down dark, deep rabbit holes. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time here on Domain Sherpa. Peace out.
Thank you.